There are three types of wedge deals, and I have come up with this acronym of core wedge deals to help you sort of remember what the three types of wedge deals are. The very first type of wedge deal is a condition-based wedge deal. And let me tell you first exactly what kind of condition usually leads to the best type of wedge deals. Generally, the best way to get a wedge deal is to find a property that does not have updated carpet. That is, it has old shag carpet or nasty carpet or stinky carpet or pet-stained carpet. That has old paint, because it just looks nasty, or it's got funky colors or not neutral colors. It has maybe acoustic or asbestos ceilings, or it's got asbestos wherever, like whatever, doesn't matter. It's got mold, or it's got lead. Usually these things are not that expensive. Quick sample, I could usually recarpet a 1,400 square foot house for under $3,000. I could usually repaint the inside for under $6,000. I could usually remove the acoustic ceiling, retexture and repaint, also for under $6,000. I could usually get rid of mold, actually mold pretty inexpensively. Usually the hardest part is fixing where the leak is. It's not necessarily the most expensive part, but finding it and then fixing it is oftentimes the hardest. Removing mold is surprisingly not that expensive. Same thing with lead, and you can do this appropriately with EPA guidelines or within EPA guidelines if you're in the United States, or other guidelines if you're around the country. But lead and mold, asbestos, these are all relatively simple concepts for remediation. So these things are all low cost but high impact. That is very important to remember. Low cost, high impact. People hear mold, they shut down, they won't even buy a place. They hear asbestos, they shut down, they won't buy a place. They see nasty paint, they see nasty carpet, it smells, it's gross, it's cluttery, whatever. Those are all easy, cheap things to fix. So that means when you fix them, the market value oftentimes goes up a multiple of what you spend. So oftentimes you put in new carpet and it used to be stinky and urine stained, you might spend $3,000 on carpet, but the property value may have just jumped $10,000 to $12,000. That is a style of a wedge improvement based on condition. Now, the opposite is true for these kind of upgrades where they're not really visible. They're good upgrades, but they're not visible. And that's going to be like energy efficient appliances, a new furnace, new ducts, new air conditioner, plumbing, electrical. These are things that most buyers don't care about, so they don't even see it until the home inspection. They just assume, we'll look at the bones on the home inspection. So these don't necessarily drive so much value. People will spend $15,000 on a new air conditioner and duct system, and then they'll think, well, the value of my house is gonna go up $15,000. Wrong. Maybe it'll go up $4,000? Like, it's a completely terrible investment to spend money on this kind of stuff if you're trying to sell a property. These things are good to spend money on for longevity purposes, or ideally if you could buy a place that has all this junk, like it's got the nasty carpet, the nasty paint, but it has an updated furnace, updated ducts, updated plumbing, updated electrical, that is oftentimes going to lead to the best style of a condition-based wedge deal. And I hate to say it, this has no bearing necessarily on stereotypes or age or whatever, but usually the best way to get a wedge deal is oftentimes from people who have lived in a house for like 30 or 40 years and they've done all of these system improvements, but they just love their shag carpet and their wallpaper and they never changed that, but they did all the expensive stuff. This is a perfect setup for a good wedge deal. So keep that in mind for the setup. Now, these are what the numbers are gonna look like. Okay, folks, much like the after repair value segment, when you buy a property for, let's say, $400,000, and then you spend $40,000 fixing up wedge style items, like carpet, paint, asbestos, lead, and the other ill factors, clutter, stinkiness, whatever. Spend $40,000 and then you're into the deal for $240,000. Let's say then you have some closing costs, so you're actually into the deal for $250,000. Now you say, well, wait a minute, my after repair value is actually $300K after repair value because everything in the neighborhood is selling for $300K. Well, guess what this difference of $50K actually represents? That, my friends, is your wedge increase in equity. And folks, what is my favorite quote when it comes to wedging real estate? Your best hedge against risk in real estate is the wedge. So yes, that might sound corny, but you should use the wedge as your hedge. My hedge is the wedge. Sounds corny, but if you remember that, you insulate yourself from risk. You remove that possibility or the likelihood of losing a lot of money. Look, you could always lose money on any deal, right? So I can't tell you that they're guarantees. But if you build in $50,000 of little bonus extra, insulation here, now the market has to all of a sudden drop 15% or 16, 17%, whatever, before you're upside down. This is just bonus because you bought it for $200K. You put 40 into it. You had some costs. You're into it for $250. It's worth $300. You're not planning on selling it because you're going to have selling costs anyway, but you know that your net worth just went up, boom, $50K like that, which is now leverageable in the future. It's protection against market falls, and really, in the long run, it just helps increase your ROI, or return on investment.